What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Kevin Jackwitz. This is the Kaged review, and this is the spoiler review for Terminator Dark Fate. This is the more in-depth, hopefully better review for Terminator. I gotta tell you, right off the bat, since we're already talking spoilers, I'm going to jump right in. At the beginning of the movie, you get a really, really big one. You have this opening scene where it's this younger version of Linda Hamilton, the younger version of John Connor, and you have this like younger version of the T-800, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who comes up with a sawed-off shotgun and shoots John Connor point blank in the chest. Linda Hamilton freaks out. She jumps up, tries to attack the Terminator, which of course does nothing. He flicks her off, shoots John again. He's dead. So literally the biggest name in the Terminator franchise is killed off. No ceremony whatsoever, just done. And I mentioned how I really liked how Tim Miller, the director, went for some of these action sequences. What I really didn't like and didn't appreciate from Tim Miller is he actually said that he did this just for the shock value. Movies are more than shock value, and especially big franchises with these big key characters in the franchises that Terminator fans know, love, expect to have something big from. It was stupid. It was just a really bad decision. And it shows in the sales for this movie. People did not like that. And I think if Tim Miller hadn't stuck his head up his own ass and decided to toy with the characters in the franchise like he did in this movie, it wouldn't have gotten the seriously negative reaction that it got. It actually might have actually made some money. But with the immediate, incredibly negative reaction that it got, nobody went to see it. Because everybody was already expecting it to suck. So that was Tim Miller shooting himself in the foot there. He made some great sequences, made a great action movie, but he screwed up the Terminator franchise yet again, and that's where it is. So, right after that, you get the appearance of Mackenzie Davis as Grace. She comes down, and you immediately get this really cool sequence where, you know, she's naked, these two people go to help her, then these cops show up and just assume she's on drugs, Grace, and Grace takes out all the cops really quickly. She's got super speed, super strength, she's been enhanced, obviously, and she talks about that later in the movie. So very cool opening, and Mackenzie Davis, she just really killed this role. Honestly, to me, she was my favorite part of this movie. I just think that she sold it very well at being a badass. Her body, dude, like the whole first scene she shot was naked, and so you see a whole lot of her, but you also see how built she is. Like, she's got a lot of muscle going on, and that is something else that like really sold this. Like, she looks like a genuine badass. So very cool there. Then you get Gabriel Luna, who ironically plays Gabriel, or the Rev 9, which is the Terminator, sent back in time. And he is looking for Danny Ramos, played by Natalia Reyes. And so there's this big scene where she's at a factory and they both meet up. There's this big fight between Grace and Gabriel, and it looked really amazing. Like, it was props to the action sequences. They really were good. So the big spoilers here. After John Connor gets killed, apparently Linda Hamilton's character, Sarah Connor, is just hunting Terminators because she keeps getting texts about where Terminators are going to be, and so she destroys them. But how are there any Terminators? They are supposedly stopped Judgment Day. Well, apparently Skynet sent several Terminators back. And this is where the story kind of falls apart, because they could have sent a bunch of Terminators to the exact same time and place, and John Connor would have been fighting a whole bunch of Terminators instead of just one. So it didn't entirely make sense there. But they sent a whole bunch of Terminators back, and so that's why she's been taking them out. So who is this new Grace? How did she get enhanced superpowers? Well, obviously she's from the future, but it's not the future that was supposed to happen. So the story goes that Sarah Connor and John Connor actually did, in fact, stop Judgment Day. They stopped Skynet. All of that is gone. It never happened. But the story goes in this movie that history repeats itself, and mankind wound up making this artificial intelligence that became self-aware and then attacked humankind anyway. And this time it's called Legion instead of Skynet, and that's where Gabriel comes from. And so the idea is that humans are just destined to create their own destruction in a way. And I didn't necessarily have a problem with that thought process. Okay, they killed Skynet, they stopped it, but mankind still winds up screwing themselves over. Probably not far from the truth, honestly. So I didn't mind that concept. What I did mind was the just unnecessary execution of John Connor. I thought that was just a huge waste. And if you are going to kill him off, that was like the worst way you could have done it. Literally the worst possible way. Tim Miller thinking he's going to do that for shock value. Ridiculous. So now they're trying to fight against Legion, and Grace has these coordinates that go to a house. And it turns out to be the same house that Sarah Connor's been getting her text from. And this is where we run into Arnold Schwarzenegger as the new T-800, like a newer edition, where they've kind of given him, I can't really say emotion, but something to where he can empathize with what's going on. So after Skynet fell, he has no purpose anymore. John Connor's dead. He actually starts to regret the fact that he killed John Connor, and that's why he's sending Sarah Connor these texts. This went off the rails for me yet again. And I liked Arnold Schwarzenegger in the role. I thought he was funny. I thought he did well with what he was given, but I did not like the direction. The whole point of Terminators are they're unfeeling, no compassion, they will not stop. And so here they are, literally breaking down everything that Terminator 1 and 2 built up. And it just kind of really shit on the first two movies. It really did. So Carl is what this T-800 is calling himself now. Arnold Schwarzenegger is calling himself Carl in the movie. And Carl is now a stepfather, married to this woman. And they make a comment in there that, like, you know, hasn't she realized that you're like 400 pounds? And Schwarzenegger makes a comment that our relationship isn't physical. I'll give him 50-50 for that one. But it's like, this guy is now a stepdad. He's raising this kid. He's feeling remorse for killing John Connor. He's willing to stand up to the new Rev 9. He's got a job selling drapes, and there was some actual good one-liners about that in there too. But it kind of killed the mythos. You know what I mean? And so I really didn't like that. At the end, of course, it takes Grace, it takes Linda Hamilton, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, all to take care of this Rev 9. They did some really cool things. And I heard some people talking about the special effect of this Rev 9, where it can kind of split its liquid self off from the metal frame and kind of create two Terminators in essence. People were saying they should have done more with that. I thought they did great with that. Like, you instantly, as soon as you see him in the big first car chase scene, he uses both his metal self and his liquid self very well. He did it in the last fight, and he did it somewhere in the middle. So I don't agree with that. I felt like they did just fine with the Rev 9. I liked what they did with it. I liked the action sequences they made with them. I thought it was phenomenal. So this last fight, it kind of goes all over the place. This big chase scene, they wind up in planes. Rev 9 steals a plane, slams that plane into the other plane, and now there's this like zero-G scene that they've got, which was really cool. I liked it. And they've got like a Hummer inside one of these planes, and so the idea is the Hummer's got a parachute. They're going to parachute the Hummer down. Doesn't quite go as expected. They do that. They're in the Hummer. It goes down, but then it kind of lands on this dam and kind of almost goes over the edge and gets caught up in these cables that wind up breaking, and it goes down, and it's like hanging at the dam's edge. And here comes the Rev 9, and Grace has to jump up and try to catch him off and cut the Hummer, and so that it actually falls into the dam's big water feed, and so you have this massive rush of water that's pushing it down. And so there were some things that were definitely far-fetched about it. Like, I like action sequences that are kind of believable, and I didn't believe this for a second. But it was very cool to look at. I will say that they did a lot with this sequence. From the plane to the dam with the Hummer, all the way to this little factory bit where they decided that they were going to stand up to this Rev 9 and have the final showdown. The kill box, as they called it so many times in this movie. And that was really cool as well. They had a lot of very cool sequences there also. So the only other thing that I haven't talked about really is Natalia Reyes as Danny Ramos, who is basically the next John Connor, and that's exactly what they called her somewhere in this movie. I didn't like it. She didn't have the same charisma as John Connor. She didn't have the same gravitas as, you know, his character did. It just, nothing sold. You didn't believe her as the savior of the world at any point in this movie. And that's kind of bad because, you know, John Connor in the first movie and even young John Connor in the second movie, like, that was believable. There was something there that was like, all right, man, this is, you know, the guy that's going to pull us out of this mess. And they even had more future scenes with this Danny character, and it just didn't sell for me. So that was a weak point. Now, if I was to shut off my brain and say, you know what, I understand this is a Terminator movie, but I'm just going to look at it like a solo action movie. It was very cool in some points. Opening up with that first big chase scene and fight between Grace and the Rev 9 on the highway, I thought it was absolutely magnificent. They did some very cool things there. And throughout the movie, like, that was a repeating process. And the storyline, I mean, it was pretty much what you got from T1 or 2, for that matter. The problem is, it's already been done, and it's been done to death. So, I didn't have a big problem with the story, other than it was just borrowed from everything else that the Terminator franchise has already done, which did not help the movie. I did enjoy it. I know I'm kind of picking apart the bad parts, but it really was a fun movie to watch. I think I give it a 7.5 just because I was basing the grade solely on the fact of, like, picturing it as a solo action movie. Now, if it was a Terminator movie, the score goes way down, like a 2 out of 10 maybe. Maybe not even that, because they really did shit all over the first 2 movies. It was really bad. So, trying to separate myself, like I said, I grade movies on the merit of the movie itself, not, based on the mythos or whatever. And as an action movie, if it stood alone, if it wasn't a part of the Terminator franchise, I liked it. So that's where I'm at, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Can you separate the two? Most people can't. I get that. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. My name is Kevin Jackowitz. Kaged Nation, out.